Hey guys, Techie Champion here, and in today's video we're going to talk about essential networking tools to help you study for the CCNA, CCNP curriculum. Keep in mind in this video I'm just going to reference the CCNA, but the tools that I do mention here will help you study for your CCNP. I'm currently studying for the CCNP route test, and these are the tools that I'm using to help me do that. Most of these tools here are going to be for virtualization. Sometimes it's hard to come by physical equipment that you can set up and run in your house. I do recommend, if you can get your hands on physical equipment, then do so. Physical equipment will help you with your hands on. It helps you actually get a good idea of what it's like to mess with the real equipment. You can set it up. You can see what's going to happen when it boots. You can see where failures might come in. Your cat may come along and chew on your cables like mine had done in the past, and you can troubleshoot that. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at my network tools folder here. I'm going to show you the tools that I use to lab up and study Cisco curriculums. So the first folder I have here is my ISO folder. Whoops. You need ISO files in your lab because you need to be able to set up endpoints on your network. The whole reason that we're building these Cisco networks is so our endpoints can communicate with each other. You're going to have Windows 7 clients, Windows 10 clients. You're going to have Windows Server clients. You're going to have all sorts of crazy stuff on your network. So you need to be able to install that in your Cisco environment for testing. So if we take a look at some of the ISO files I have, this is what I recommend. Get yourself a copy of Windows 7. Typically, if you're going to be virtualizing it, you can use a 32-bit version. It's going to run a lot better in a virtual environment because it uses less resources. So you can go ahead and use or set up more copies of your Windows 7 machines. Next thing I'm going to mention is get yourself a copy of Windows Server if possible. Typically, you can go online and get this stuff for free from Microsoft. If not, just, scour the internet. You don't necessarily need a product key when you're in a lab environment. It will work for a certain period of time, and then it'll give you a message that it's not activated. But it doesn't matter because the whole point of having these machines installed is typically just to be able to ping across your network from endpoint to endpoint. So with Windows 7 and Windows Server, any addition, you should be fine unless you're trying to study Microsoft stuff also. You want to see if you can come across the latest versions. In the real world, you're most likely going to run into Windows 2008 R2 server. You're going to have a lot of 2012 servers, and I'm starting to see quite a bit of the 2016 platforms coming in. So keep that in mind. It's typically all the same regardless. When you're setting up servers, it's pretty much the same. There's a few differences, but it's not too crazy. So that covers our Windows environment. The next thing I want to talk about is getting yourself a copy of Linux. You can go online and get Linux for free. Download Ubuntu or Ubuntu server. If you know the command line well, then just get the server version because that's all you really need. It doesn't have a GUI interface and it runs really smooth in a virtual environment. Linux is an amazing tool for network engineers. There's so much you can do with it. There's so many tools. There's so many services that you can set up on a Linux server or on a Linux environment. So definitely get yourself a Linux ISO. In the future, I plan on setting up videos to show you guys how I lab and what my environment's like, and you're definitely going to see some Linux. So keep that in mind. And the last ISO I'm going to mention is the CSR100v, which is a Cisco cloud services router. You can get a copy of this for free from the Cisco website, which I'll link you guys to a copy of where you can get a CSR100v image. But basically what this is a virtual router that runs in VMware. You can install this in VMware and you can clone it and set up as many routers as you want and link them together, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So yeah, get yourself a copy of these images and you won't go wrong. Well, let's move on. If you're a Cisco candidate, you're most likely familiar with Putty, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but this is the terminal emulation software that you're going to want to use to be able to console in or connect to your Cisco devices in general. You can set up Telnet SSH and your console connections with Putty. You should be very familiar with Putty or something like it. There's a few other ones out there. I prefer to use Putty. So definitely download and get yourself a copy of Putty. Get that set up and running. You can go ahead and tweak the colors and things like that too, which typically when I use Putty, I like to set it up with a black and green window. So I got that nice black with the green. Real easy to see, and I think it looks cool. So hold on, I'm going to mute that so it doesn't keep doing that here. Hold on. Mute that. So get yourself a copy of Putty, and then check out Super Putty. Super Putty kind of, what it does is it uses Putty, so you have to have it installed, but Super Putty allows you to set up multiple tabs. Because in Putty, it's just going to open up separate windows for each connection. In Super Putty, you can set up tabs up here and have them all lined up. You can rename the tabs and everything, so you have it all right here in one window. Makes it really easy to switch between your networking devices that you're working on. So definitely Google Super Putty and get yourself a copy of that. I'll leave a link to the description on where you can pick this up also. So that covers how we connect to our devices. Let's get into some virtualization a little bit. So the first form of, well, this isn't really virtualization. This is more simulation, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with Cisco Packet Tracer. This is what the Networking Academy gives you. If you're a part of the Networking Academy, I believe now you can just get it without being a part of the Networking Academy just by going to the Cisco Networking Academy website and signing up with your email. It'll let you download the latest version of Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is really good for beginners, but for advanced study and users, there's a lot of features in Packet Tracer that are missing from actual equipment. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to go over the entire list right now of what's missing from Packet Tracer. But Packet Tracer definitely has its usefulness, but it's not quite as good as running actual Cisco images. One thing I use Packet Tracer for is just to build topologies out. If I'm thinking of a network lab, what I'll do is just set it up in Packet Tracer from a physical standpoint, because it's real easy. It's real quick and easy to come in here and set things up. And then I'll take this and I'll build it out on my virtual platform or on physical equipment. So I'll typically, most of the time, just use this as a reference just to build a topology, because it takes quite a while to get into Visio and set up things in Visio and make it look all neat. So this is like a rough draft, I guess you could say. I use Packet Tracer for a rough draft of setting up topologies. Another good usefulness of Packet Tracer is when you're trying to troubleshoot something on your physical lab. If something's not working right, you can use Wireshark, but sometimes Wireshark becomes a little painful. It's a little hard to understand if you don't know what you're doing. So what I'll do is set it up in Packet Tracer. I'll build out the portion of the network that's failing and then use the simulation tool to actually see what the failure is, because a lot of the times you can this will tell you right away where the issue is, and then you're able to correct it. So that's Packet Tracer. If you guys are studying for Cisco, I'm sure you already know about Packet Tracer, but go ahead and get yourself a copy because you're going to see me using it in the future. So that covers Cisco simulation. So now I'm going to talk about Cisco emulation and what the differences are there. So there's a program out there called GNS3, which is also free. Definitely get yourself a copy of GNS3, because what this is going to do is allow you to emulate Cisco router images. And what that means is you're taking an actual Cisco image and you're running it within this program. So it allows you to emulate the software. And this is really nice because it gives you a nice interface. And we're going to go way more in depth into GNS3 in the future. But it allows you to set up some routers. Keep in mind, GNS3 only works for routing. There's no switch emulation available. They do have these generic switches in here, but they're similar to what you would call a dumb switch or an unmanaged switch. You can set VLANs on them, but there's no emulation of Cisco IOS. It's just a GUI interface to set up what you need for switching. This is a routing tool. Keep in mind, though, you will need your own Cisco image, and the recommended Cisco image is the 7200 image, which you can find on the internet. You can, if you do a Google search for the Cisco 7200 image, you should be able to come across it somewhere. It's not free, but typically you should be able to download it for free from somewhere. I got it for free. I'm not sure where I got it at this point, but it is recommended to have that 7200 image. And then what you do is you set it up in this program, and it allows you to boot in to the image. So I'm going to fire this router up and then go to console, and it actually leverages Putty, and it allows me to have my own Cisco image right in front of me. This is real iOS right here. It's not simulated like it is in Packet Tracer. This is a real Cisco iOS that we're emulating. So keep that in mind. That is the difference between simulation and emulation. Simulation is something like Packet Tracer, where it's just a simulated program. Emulation means you're emulating a real Cisco iOS image. We got conft do show run. Whoops. You know, we're going to be using this program quite a bit to do labs, so keep that in mind for future videos. I'll link you guys to GNS3 in the description. Go ahead and download it because it is free. You will have to sign up on their website, but it's an amazing program. Next thing I want to talk about is VMware. If you guys are not familiar with VMware, please do yourself a favor. Go out there and learn about VMware, because that ties into what I was talking about earlier with the CSR100v images. You can run those in a VMware platform and set up networking between your routers and things like that. It's an amazing tool, especially if you're studying, because it's going to allow you to build out larger topologies and virtualize them. A few things you may need, though, to run VMware is a server or a pretty powerful computer, because the thing with VMware and GNS3, which I forgot to mention, is it does use your computer's resources. So you need to keep that in mind. You have to have a decent amount of RAM, depending on how much stuff you want to run. You need a decent amount of RAM in your machine to be able to run, you know, the Windows 7 and Linux endpoints along with the routers and things like that. But we're going to go way more in depth into the VMware side of what I'm talking about here and how it works. But keep in mind you're going to be able to use VMware to build out entire virtual labs with full networking capabilities. You're going to see me use that quite often. If you don't have a server, I would recommend to get one, but in the meantime, if you have a decent enough computer, you can go to VMware's site and download VMware Workstation Pro for free. I think you can get a 30-day trial, if I'm not mistaken, of VMware Workstation Pro. And this will allow you to install ESXi, which is the core of VMware, within here. It's called nested virtualization. So what you can do is set up ESXi within VMware Workstation and then set up your virtual lab. It's really cool stuff. In a video down the line, we're going to go ahead and talk about this stuff more in depth. Keep in mind, this video is just, and I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of what you're going to see me use. If you follow the videos I'm going to be coming out with in the future, these are the tools that I'm going to be using to create labs and study. So keep that in mind and do a little research on VMware. It's a really, really fun application to use once you understand how it works, and it helps you tremendously in your Cisco studies. You wouldn't think it, but it does, because you're able to download and install those CSR100v routers and play with them, link them together. The networking that's inside of VMware is really legit. It's really awesome. Something else I want to talk about here is SolarWinds TFTP server, which I thought I had it installed, but it's telling me I need to install it. So I'm not going to worry about it. But what this does is it sets up a lightweight TFTP server on your computer. And the reason you would need that is so you can back up your images on your routers. When you install it, it sets up a nice little area on your C drive called TFTP root. So when you install that, you'll see this show up. And what you do is you point your Cisco routers over to the TFTP server running on your Windows machine, and then it will actually allow you to back up your images. So you can back up your running configurations, you can back up your images, save it all right here in this TFTP root directory, and then restore it. It's real simple to use, it's real nice and easy. This is more for physical equipment. But keep that in mind. If you are running physical equipment, the first thing you should be doing is backing up your images, because you don't want to lose your image files. So, most likely when you get a router or a switch, a physical one, it's going to already have an image on it, or it should. Or if it doesn't, then hopefully you already have a copy of it and you can just copy it over. So definitely get your hands on SolarWinds TFTP, or any TFTP server. I recommend SolarWinds because it's free and it's easy to use. Whoops. Let's go back into my, that ain't it, our network tools folder here. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we cut this video is Visio. Visio is an amazing program because it's going to allow you to create professional network documentation. So if you look here, this is a topology of a network I designed, and this is actually what I'm running in my house right now. This is my home network. I went ahead and scribbled it all out here in Visio, which, like I said, to do this, it takes quite a while. You're going to have to sit down and dedicate a little bit of time to making decent looking topologies in Visio. That's why I typically throw it together in Packet Tracer first. Then I'll use the Packet Tracer to reference and build out what I'm trying to build out in Visio. One thing I want to talk about is if you guys are looking for a job, don't be afraid to build out these network topologies of your labs and things that you're working on, and take this stuff with you to the interview. This will impress the people that you're interviewing quicker than anything else, because especially if you don't have a lot of experience, you can go in there and say, hey, I may not have the experience that you're looking for on paper, but this is what I'm doing at home. This is what I'm studying. Here's my lab. Here's a professional network diagram. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to be impressed by something like this. So don't be afraid to start building topologies in Visio and using that. Put yourself together a portfolio of the lab networks that you work on. Build a topology of your home network. Any network that you touch, build a map, build a topology, build a portfolio out of that, and take that with you when you interview. You're going to get a really good response. So that's about it for now. Oh wait, there is one more. Notepad++. I almost forgot. Notepad++. Go and get yourself a copy of Notepad++, because what this allows you to do is set up these tabs up here in Notepad. And it becomes really handy, because what I do when I'm building labs is not only do I have the backup images and backup configs, I take everything and I write out all my commands in Notepad. And this helps you troubleshoot, because if you have everything laid out like this, really nice, you can go through all of these and take a look at running configs. And then what I do, you can just copy and paste all of this right into the router. So these are the actual commands that you would put in. You're going to see me doing this in the future, so keep that in mind. You're definitely going to want to have Notepad++ available to you. It's real lightweight. It's real nice. It allows you to set up these tabs, and it comes in handy, and you'll see why in the future. So I want to thank you guys for taking a look at this video. I've been out of the YouTube game for quite some time, and I decided, it's time to get back in. I've accomplished my CCNA since my last videos. I'm studying for my CCNP now, so I want to go ahead and start doing live action labs for you guys to take a look at. I plan on doing some live streams, so get at me. Feel free to like and share this video and leave me your comments.